Thank you to our channel sponsors, Jet.Build. If you're looking for ways to better manage your real estate development and construction projects, look no further. Jet is the command center software for end-to-end real estate development and construction management. That's www.jet.build. Brian, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you on, excited to hear your story and to share it. Where are you calling in from?
I am in northern Louisiana right now. I live in San Antonio, but I'm actually working away from home, and I'm in northern Louisiana building a huge AI data center.
That's awesome. We're going to dive into that a lot, and I'll have a bunch of questions. I love hearing about what's going on in the data center world. But before we get there in your life story, we'll start off with two quick questions. First is, if your kids tell you they want to join the military, join the service, how do you react?
Surprise. Neither of them have actually showed very much interest in it. I I had kids way after I got out, so they really didn't experience any of that with me. So they have a healthy appreciation for it. I mean, their grandfather on my wife's dad was in the service for a long time, so they appreciate it a lot. But it would surprise me quite a bit if they told me they wanted to. They haven't shown a lot of interest so far.
Sure, sure. Um, Out of curiosity, your wife's dad, did you know him? You know, well, I'm guessing if is he alive? I should ask. Is he still alive or
Yes,
not?
yeah, he's still alive.
Oh,
I didn't
amazing.
know him before. No. When I
Does
got
he
out of
does
the,
he ever go ahead?
go
Sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Does he ever talk to you about his service?
Oh yeah, yeah, we talk about it all the time.
Oh,
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
So generally,
My wife was only like 15 when I got out of the service, so
mm,
it would have been strange for me to have known her and been involved with her at that time.
yeah, got you. So I'm glad to hear that about your wife's father, because typically, I don't know, older generations, generally speaking, are not talking about their service much. Um, but I'm not sure if they're because of the age gap or whatnot. I don't know what generation he was or isn't. Any cool kind of stories he's shared with you?
He actually like got out, retired as a major, and then after 9/11 happened, he went back in and had to go back
Mm,
in as an E5. And he spent, I think he did 2 tours in Afghanistan.
mm,
So yeah, he he's a little crazy. He got his last tour. He got blown up, is how he talks about it.
mm,
But he was in a rocket attack and got some TBI issues and stuff from that.
mhm.
So
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, moving onwards. Next question is, generally speaking, when veterans join civilian workforce, obviously, of course, naturally, there is cultural gaps that exist, and vice versa for civilians to, veterans, embracing veterans. How do you see us better improving that dynamic moving forward?
I, we tend to click up too much, I think, sometimes,
Mm,
and don't share our experiences with people who never served.
mm,
And just thinking that they can't understand or wouldn't ever understand, and I think that's wrong. I mean, how are they ever going to understand if we don't tell them?
mm,
If we don't talk to them about it and share our stories. I mean, lots of folks like me. I mean, my granddads, both of them are gone, and I got to talk to one of them. One of them passed away before I was born, but I got to talk to my dad's dad about his service a little bit, and um, kind of interesting. I found after he passed away, I found uh, a postcard that he had sent to my grandmother. He was stationed in San Antonio, where I live now. So, yeah, it's something I never even realized until after he was gone, and sort of miss having the opportunity to talk to him about that. I think that would have been interesting.
mm. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And it sounds like you still have that postcard.
Oh yeah, yeah, I do. Yeah. And it's
Awesome.
just those kind of things. I think, the prior generation, we always regret when they're gone what we didn't talk to them about as veterans. You know, man, I
Mhm.
wish I'd have been able to talk to my dad about his service in Vietnam, my grandfather about his service in Korea, or World War II, or whatever
Mhm.
that is. You know, wish they'd have told me more. Wish we'd have talked more when I was a kid. And I think we owe it to the people around us to kind of let them in, you know, and have them understand a little bit more about our journey. You know, they're mostly, for the most part, very supportive, and it's a pretty cool thing when you can connect with people that way.
Sure. Yeah, I absolutely agreed. That said, something that I struggle with myself is being able to talk about service, and then especially so, exactly as you brought up, right? Especially so to someone who can't really relate. I mean, how do you, you don't even have to have an answer, just kind of brainstorming here with you. Um, like how do we simplify that? How do we like improve that dynamic of, again, just a cultural gap that's there? Because I agree with you.
Yeah, and I think just telling stories. I mean, they may not.
Yeah.
You may have to tell them in a little different language than you would with your
Mhm.
buddies, because you know there is a different vernacular, a different language that we speak when we talk to those people that we served with. And but you know, I think if you make the effort, it's almost always worthwhile.
Mhm. Yeah, well said. I agree. Totally agree. All right, awesome, Brian. So we're gonna do a life story. Everyone starts off with a formal introduction, so I'll kick off with that. Brian Winningham served in the 3rd Ranger Battalion, Mortars B&A companies, where he deployed to Operation Just Cause Republic of Panama in 1989 to 1990. Today, Brian is a lean manager at Mortenson Construction, helping people in the construction industry make their work easier, something Brian is absolutely devoted to. Additionally, Brian's passion is reducing the number of suicides and addressing the mental health crisis in the construction industry. Brian became a mental health first aid instructor as a way to begin taking action, being the hardest and most rewarding work Brian gets to do. That's something we're going to absolutely dedicate kind of a segment of the show to. Would love, for you to talk about that, highlight that issue, that being suicide in construction industry, and talk about what we can do a bit better. But before we get to kind of that phase of your life, let's start with childhood, where you grew up, and what were you into as a kid?
Grew up in a really small town in Arkansas, Bald Knob, Arkansas, for anybody that might be from there. Um, I went to work at 10 years old. I've been in construction since I was 10, literally.
Mhm.
Went to work for the local lumber company. My dad was a manager there, and I did everything from, wait on customers to eventually I got started working out in the field, helping them build houses and stuff like that, because they also did contracting on the side. And, my dad was also HVAC technician and repaired air conditioners and stuff as a side job too. And I went on those with him all the time as well. Yeah, I mean, some of my earliest memories are my dad pipeline when I was very young, and some of my earliest memories are getting in that machine with him and then putting a bucket in there for me to sit on and just being in the machine while he was working all day. Yeah, he operated a backhoe, and yeah, that was came home carrying more dirt on me than anything else most of the time. Got really dirty. And but yeah, it was something I did until I was about 16 or 17. Uh, Started homeschooling when I was about 16, and ended up started pipelining too. We started pipelining again, moved away from Bald Knob, and went on the road a little while, and did some pipelining, and really enjoyed that. Got a lot of it's funny, but I did a project. We did a project up in Northwest Arkansas, putting in sewer and water line for a development up there, and we ended up having to shoot with dynamite like 75, no, 95% of the job, and it was 30 miles of water and 27 miles of sewer line, and some of that ditch was 27 feet deep, or deeper even a little
Wow.
bit. And we I got to do some of that. I got to handle dynamite and blow stuff up, and as a 18-year-old kid, that's pretty heady stuff, you know. But it was a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Learned
That's
so
great.
much. Yeah. But I actually blew more stuff up, and I was mortars, so we blew everything up. But I got to blow up a lot of stuff while I was doing that, and probably probably handled more explosives then than I did my whole career in the military. So yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's great. I can see where you learned a lot there, and why that would be a fun childhood, and potentially how that kind of drove you toward enlisting. What was there something in particular through childhood that kind of got you keyed on to military service?
my uncles and my grandfathers, and it's
Mm,
just that it's in my family. I,
yeah.
I didn't join out of any of those kind of things really, as much as I'd kind of run out of things that places to go, and was kind of at a really low point in my life, and couldn't figure out what was next and what I needed to do, and uh, how I was going to grow up. I was a little older than most people when I enlisted. I was 21, and just really needed a reset in my life, and military seemed like the right thing to do. Signed up with an airborne contract and then volunteered for the Ranger Battalion in airborne school. So
Mm.
just very, very blessed in the way that things worked out for me. Just that there's so much I owe to 3rd Ranger Battalion, the people I served under and with. So much capacity that I gained, and just, I grew up a lot. I had to.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yep. So before I get into service, asking about your family, and especially your grandparents, did they share any specific stories that, I don't know, you recall from childhood that you want to or can repeat?
Um, just generally, they talked about it. I didn't really get a lot of specific
Mm,
stories from my grandfather. He didn't have to go overseas. He was pretty lucky. He was in the medical field. That's I guess why he was in San
mm,
Antonio. But he never had to go overseas in World War II. So he spent his whole enlistment over here. But had a couple of uncles who were. One of my uncles on my mom's side was in Vietnam, and was in. Uh, I think he was in Quezon during the Tet Offensive. So I mean, he was in the Air Force, but he was still they had to protect all the helicopters and airplanes and things like that. And he saw a little bit of stuff there and has told me a few stories about that, but I can't really just about I'd have to think to try to remember exactly what that story was.
yeah,
I don't recall it right
no
off the
worries.
top of my head. But yeah,
Yeah, no
just
worries. I'm just intrigued by kind of the historical events, if if you remembered it. But yeah, no worries at all.
and I honestly I didn't know what the Rangers were when I joined them. I didn't know what I was getting myself
Mm.
into. It just sounded like I didn't want to go to Fort Bragg, and there was an opportunity that I could have been sent up to Washington. My family was living in California at the time, so I was like, that sounds like I might get home more often if I go there, but that's not how it worked out for me.
Right. So
I ended up staying in Fort Benning the whole time, but yeah.
okay. So let's walk through that process. So you had mentioned you were in 21, I think you said. So what was happening between, I guess, 18 and 21, and then what was the kind of inflection point for you to start looking at service?
So yeah, I mean, I had a lot of trauma as a kid. Was in 3 major accidents as a teenager. I got hit
Mhm.
by a train when I was 16, driving my dad's truck.
Wow.
Walked away from it. Wasn't hurt, but I can still remember to this day looking out the window and seeing that light just right there. I mean, it was
Wow.
strange. Yeah. It was snowing. There was no crossing arm, and there was buildings right next to the railroad track, and it was in this little small town in Arkansas. But not my a different small town than where I grew up. But
Mm,
yeah, I mean, and didn't even realize the trauma that I'd gotten from that until a whole lot later. But
mm.
my another one where we rolled the truck 4 times. My sister's boyfriend was I let him drive my truck, and he got to messing around, and we rolled on the side of a mountain, rolled over 4 times, and all I got out of that was a little cut on my ear. I was really lucky. And then we we were driving in that had a horrible rainstorm up in northwest Arkansas where we were at the time. This is when I was 18, and we hydroplaned across the center line. My mom was driving, and we got hit head on by a bread truck, and that one was
Oh,
bad. Yeah, that one's pretty terrible. My mom had a lot of her basically her femur went through her pelvic bone and shattered everything in there, and uh, 7 ribs broken away from her sternum, and in traction, the whole deal. It's kind of a just a really tough time. So, but
mm.
so there is on my mom's side, there's some Scotch Irish in me, so I'm a little bit stubborn, and uh, I got a lot of stick to itiveness through her, and through that side of my family, and I just knew that there was no one that could make me quit except me, and that's what served me really well through my whole military career. But yeah, just after that, after all that trauma and stuff, I just started making not great decisions, like a lot of people do who
Mm.
suffer from trauma, and just got to a point where I had to do something to change, and the military was what that was. And it was the best thing I could have ever done for sure.
Amazing. So you got to the recruiter. What was kind of that decision process like? I mean, you already mentioned, right? You didn't know anything about the Rangers. It sounded like you might not have known what you're getting into necessarily on like
I,
a detail level.
no, not at all. I mean, I volunteered for airborne, but I didn't really know what that meant either. I knew I'd jump out of airplanes,
Mm.
but I didn't really know what that meant. I think my dad went with me to the recruiter the last time when I finally signed up, and he was pretty angry at me because I signed up for infantry. He's like, "You're way smarter than that. You could do something different." And I was like, "This is what I want to do," So yeah, uh, I got signed up for infantry, but got stuck being a mortar, which that's infantry also, but still, it's a little different. uh,
Sure. Mhm.
um, but yeah, just
So
go ahead.
yeah, so walk us through enlisting, get into basic training and kind of onwards.
Yeah, so we had several older folks who were in my basic training class. Our class leader, who only got fired once, I think, was a former Navy vet. Um, he had served on the USS Ranger, but then he had signed up for an Option 40 contract, which was a Ranger contract. So that probably another reason, a lot of the people that I knew through basic training had signed up to go to the Rangers. So I thought, well, won't be the worst thing if I end up with all these folks that I'm starting to like and stuff. And um,
Hmm.
I still keep in contact with Fred. I mean, we went through basic training, airborne school, and RIP together, and then he was in Alpha Company and I was in Bravo Company. But then eventually I moved over and was in the same platoon as Fred, one of my buddies. But yeah, so
Awesome.
I get to basic training and still remember, being on the feet, getting off the bus, get off my bus, and all that fun stuff like they used to do. Um, and I just knew that the best thing for me was just to do exactly what they said and just sit there and don't say anything and don't move, don't scratch, don't do any of the stupid things that a lot of the other people were doing. And they were doing a lot of push-ups and stuff, and I was just standing there. One thing I am proud of, I was a squad leader. I got made a squad leader because I had been to college for a little while, and
Mm.
before I joined, and was a squad leader all through basic and AIT, and never got fired. I was one of the only ones that didn't get fired. Most of the ones that got fired got hired back again, but yeah, I was a squad leader all the way through basic, and didn't get my job taken away from me. I think it's mostly just because I didn't make a lot of noise. Kind of, I knew to be the gray
Sure.
man, as much as I could.
Sure. Yeah. So
Uh,
at what point did you, I guess, were you able to volunteer for Ranger Regiment? Like, at what point did that pop up for you?
so I had airborne school in my contract and got through basic
Hmm.
training and made it to airborne school and had gotten in shape while I was in basic training too. And airborne school was pretty easy, regardless for physical
Hmm.
training and stuff. It wasn't terrible. I mean, it's just a lot a lot of stuff is just outlasting. Just
Hmm.
being able to stick to it and not let it you know mess with your mind. A lot of what they do.
Hmm.
And so I remember. I can't wait. I think it was after the second week. His airborne school was 3 weeks, and I think it was after the second week they came in and the regiment came in and we went to an auditorium. They came in and talked to us. I mean, those guys looked sharp, with their black berets and their starched BDUs. And no, I think they had OG 107s. I think they were still in OG 107s, the old Vietnam uh, camis, basically. But they were just a green, but they look different than everybody else that I saw, and I was like, well, that seems like it's kind of cool. Maybe there's a chance I can go to Second Ranger Battalion up in Fort Lewis and be a lot closer to home. But no, I volunteered and then ended up staying in Fort Benning the whole time.
Hmm. Cool.
But
So walk us through what that was like, right? So you're finishing up with airborne school, and then I guess you transitioned to the Ranger program.
yeah, so they brought a deuce and a half down to airborne school, and it was maybe a mile and a half to where we were going to RIP. But they brought a deuce and a half and then made us run with our bags. They didn't let us put anything in the deuce and a half, but we ran all the way from airborne school to RIP. Um, and RIP was more the same. It was just a matter of never giving up, not
Mm.
quitting. I mean, if you didn't quit, you could make it through. As long as you were able to, do the basic tasks. It's much better now. The selection process is longer and better now. They changed the name to RAS, but back in the day it was RIP, and it was 3 weeks of we're going to try to make you quit, and that's what they did. And
Hmm.
I knew that I was more stubborn than that they couldn't make me quit. They could fire me, but they couldn't make me quit.
Yep, that's even today. I mean, that's certainly the mindset that you need to have. Is exactly as you put it. Anything kind of like in particular you remember from RIP that was particularly hard, challenging, funny?
We went to what was then called Building 4. It's School of the Infantry now, but they took us down there because our RIP barracks were old World War II. Like they looked like they should have been condemned. They were pretty bad. They were right above Lawson Army Airfield. Uh, I think the Cardiac Hills, what we used to call the hill that we ran up and down, that's right outside our barracks. Um, but yeah, we went to Building 4 for a class, and they didn't let us sleep a lot all the time. So in the class, it was really difficult for me because I've always had sleep issues, even since a kid, and I started dozing off. And one of the instructors had, the big rubber erasers, like the good sized ones, like
Hmm.
about 3 inches long, 2 inches around, or whatever, square, or whatever. He nailed
Hmm.
me right in the eye. I know he didn't mean to, but like he threw it from the very front of the room, caught me dozing off, and just nailed me right in the eye. And I was like, holy crap. I didn't tell him I couldn't see for a while after that. It probably would have freaked him out a little bit, but everything was fine. Yeah, it worked out okay. But between that and
Yeah, so something something that I always remember is underrated how going through coursework, meaning like in a classroom setting while you're in a pipeline, is just, I mean, frankly, from my recollection, my experience, literally impossible to stay awake. It's literally impossible. Like I recall even standing up and not being able to stay awake. Just something about the environment. It
Yeah,
just so I hear you. I feel you, and that's hilarious. I can't imagine how shocking it was for you to doze off and get hit in the face with with a
yeah,
razor. So that's a good one.
yeah. Thank you, Sergeant Shot. I appreciate it. Thanks for keeping me awake.
So after the RIP program, I mean, first of all, do you remember if a lot of people started and then not so many finished, or was it a good class
Yeah,
in terms of attrition?
no, we had about 120 start, and I think we finished with 35 or 40.
Yeah, wow, wow.
Yeah, that was pretty typical back then. Although it was strange, there were people that did make it through that really weren't shouldn't have. I mean that I think that
Mhm.
happens in all pipelines, but yeah.
Sure, sure. So then after that, the RIP few weeks, what happens after that?
So I got to Third Battalion. I didn't get what I wanted. I didn't get sent to Fort Lewis up in Washington State. So I get to Third Battalion, stayed right at Fort Benning, and went to Third Battalion and met my new platoon sergeant, who was a little bit crazy. Still is. I love Gene. He's awesome, and we still talk all the time. So he's a great guy. And I mean, he was 27, 28, 29, and I was 21, 22 at the time. So there really wasn't
Mhm.
the gap felt huge, but there really wasn't a very big age difference. And there were several of us that were about around my age, 21 or 20, 21,
Mhm.
that got there right around the same time, and we sort of gravitated together and became really good friends. But I got there right as they were transitioning from the whole regiment was transitioning from the OG 107 uniforms to BDUs, which is what we got in
Mhm.
basic training. So before, when you were new, it was very easy to tell that you were new because you didn't have OG 107s and you were wearing BDUs, and it was pretty easy to get caught up in a smoke fest that way. And get a little extracurricular training. But everybody's BDUs were new, so and we got issued 6 sets and stuff like that that the regular Army didn't get, so we got different issue than everybody else, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, just being there at that time. Plus, I got there right as we were beginning EIB training, expert infantry badge training, and so it was sort of lax. I mean, a lot of the senior enlisted people, or E6s, E7s, and some E5s even were doing the training, and running us through stations to get
Mhm.
us ready to take the EIB test. So it was kind of fun. I mean, it wasn't too bad. We were able to kind of figure our way around things because of the way things were going. It wasn't like we were on a constant deployment cycle right then or anything. Um, so that
Mhm.
was I got there in September. We finally, I think we finished testing for the EIB sometime mid-October, and then the beginning of November we deployed. Just mortars and our forward observers deployed to a place called Vieques Island. I don't know if you've heard of that. They don't use it anymore, but that's where they used to have naval gunfire uh, training there at this little. They
Mhm.
had some hulks out there, and the ships would come up, and we sat out there, and we were the only mortar group that was there, the only mortar team that was there, and that was interesting. We were staying in some Quonset huts with some Navy Seabees, and there was
Mhm.
just, you know, 25 of us. It was a very small deployment. It was very small. I guess more like 35 probably, with because we had the different there were the fist the forward observers from all three companies, but my Bravo company, the company I was with, we were the only mortar section that went. Um, but my very first real road march, I mean, we did a road march for EIB training, but that, you can only carry 45 pounds there, and that, to do that, it's sort of regimented. But we had our very first day after we got there, we left in November, and we get to Puerto Rico, and it's, 90 degrees and 95% humidity, and going from, 40 degrees and whatever it was in Columbus at the time. And
Hmm.
we get up the first morning and go road march. And it wasn't long. It was only 13 miles, but I, I can still remember seeing the tunnel coming, and I passed out. And after I passed out, they threw me they had like a minivan following us, and they poured a bunch of water in me and on me and then kicked me back out. And I was like, holy crap, this is what I signed up for. I, I didn't know I wasn't going to get a ride to the end. And, yeah, the last mile too was like at a 47% grade. It was pretty terrible. And we were carrying real weight too. I mean, it was probably 80 pounds,
Hmm.
85 pounds with rounds and all of our gear. And I carried a radio as well. So yeah, that was a wake up call to understand that I had a long way to go to be able to do what I
Sure.
needed to do. But I learned, I figured out how to road march, and my legs are short, but I still figured out how to lengthen my stride and open my hips, whatever it is. But I figured out how to get there.
Hmm.
There's something about it, road marching. You definitely can get inside your own head and just live there for a while you're doing it, because it hurts at
Hmm.
first for a while, and then it stops hurting. It's just everything's numb. So yeah.
Yeah. W- Well said. Was there like a purpose to this deployment, or was it a training deployment?
It was a training deployment. It was so that our FIST guys,
Hmm.
because we had quite a few new people there, and they got to go and shoot naval gunfire, which they didn't
Got
get
it.
to do very often. That only limited opportunities to
Hmm.
do that, other than in a trainer or whatever,
Hmm.
simulated. But yeah, they got to do the real things. They got some fast movers and stuff as well from the Navy. So it was a good training.
Hmm.
And I remember Michelob was only about $3.50 for per case at the PX there too. So we had a lot of drinking and a lot of partying and a lot of hard work. So that kind of set the
Sure.
tone for the rest of my time in battalion, honestly.
Hmm. And you kind of touch on something that I found to be the case in my experience, and I just see this like common thread where pipeline in terms of getting to wherever you're serving kind of creates this, baseline expectation so that when you get to your unit, you get to your team, it gets elevated from that baseline, which is far off from where you were as a civilian prior to service. It
Yeah,
sounds like you're kind of just described that exact dynamic.
yeah. I mean, it's getting there is hard. Staying there is the harder part of that, and I
Exactly.
think
Yeah.
that's true for
Hmm.
most units. It's maintaining the standard is not easy. Touching the standard and getting to the standard, that's one thing, and that's what they do to you in the pipeline. But staying there,
Hmm.
that's the difficult part, and living it every
Hmm.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said. Well said. So, at what point did because I feel like we kind of breezed past it. At what point did you kind of separate into mortars, and what was that like?
That was an AIT. So they do one station unit training, which means
Hmm.
that for infantry, it means you do all your training in the same place as basic training. And just that was in my AIT phase. They broke us off. It was a full infantry company for basic training, and then for AIT they broke up the 11 Bravos, which is the regular infantry guys, and then the Mortars got their own deal, and we got to go. I think we might have fired a round apiece during basic training, a real round, one real round apiece. Got to drop it down the tube and figure that out. But yeah,
Hmm.
was
Okay, yeah, neat. Do you
very.
think that like your experience growing up, like childhood, did that play into mortars at all? Like just familiarity, generally speaking?
I don't think so. They tell me it's because your GT
Mm,
score is good in math. I don't know. I guess I had a higher GT score in math or something that's how you get picked. I have no idea. I,
mm.
I knew lots of people that were line on the line that
Did,
were really smart too. So
sure, sure. I meant more so like you like personally, I don't know, handling mortars and just being with explosive devices as a general kind of concept.
and honestly, I mostly carried a radio my whole time in battalion. That's what I
Mm,
did most of the time. I was on a gun team or on one of the gun teams early when I very first got to battalion, but I got put on a radio pretty quickly, and I was the platoon sergeant's RTO for most of my time in Bravo
mm.
Company um, until I got back from Ranger School.
Got it. Yeah, I got it. Okay. So fast forward back to this training deployment. Anything else happen on that deployment? Otherwise, yeah, go ahead.
One of the times that I felt more close to death than just about any other time I was in the service, it, it was election time in Puerto Rico, and the spirits were flowing after the election that night, and we were cut loose in town, this little village, and there were probably four or five of us trying to talk to these two high school girls using our high school Spanish, what little of it that we had, and we ended up missing our ride back to where the Quonset huts were. It's like 6 or 7 miles away. And the girl's father had taken us all over, had brought us all over to his house and was like taking shots of tequila and sharing shots of tequila with us. Uh, Needless to say, we found out the girls were young and kind of shied away from that a little bit. But a couple of guys were younger than me, like 18 or whatever, and we're still trying to talk to them a little. But
Hmm.
we ended up with about 7 or 8 people in a Camaro, getting a ride back from her dad, who was pretty wasted, and he turned his flashers on. It was something I found interesting. I didn't know was the law there, but he said, "Oh, if you're drunk, you just turn the flashers on. It's okay." So he uh, he 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 drove us back in that Camaro, and that was probably the most scared that I was for just about any time I was in regiment.
Wow.
Other than getting shot at by people. But yeah, that was an interesting ride. He took one S curve and just straightened it completely out. I don't know how he did that. And if the car hadn't been so full of people, we might have rolled over a couple times the way he was driving. But yeah,
That's ridiculous. So,
yeah. And
so after
then
this
there was
deployment, what happens from there?
we go
Oh,
back and
sorry.
we
Yeah, go ahead.
no,
Sorry.
well, yeah, we also had like a gross out thing with the Seabees one night, just out of boredom, just seeing who could gross the other group of people out, and we ended up winning that one. I'm not going to say how, but we did. Uh, I'll let you use your imagination. You've probably seen some of the same things, but yeah. But yeah, from there we came back and we deployed to Puerto Rico again. We deployed to Panama, not just as non-combat deployments, but just for training. We went down to Puerto Rico for 3 weeks. One of the fun things we did there is we had one of those three-person slingshots. Two people hold the sides, and another one holds and aims it. And we caught the sergeant major walking across. We were in these National Guard barracks there. We caught the sergeant major walking across the quad area there, and we nailed him with a bunch of water balloons. And he came over really mad, and we just told him we were training. We had the mortars out, and we were practicing with the water balloons. So wasn't a lot he could do to us. uh,
That's
we
good.
we got
Some good,
we
good
got
old fun.
we got up to a lot of shenanigans. We did.
Sure.
As we were leaving Puerto Rico, my buddy and I started having a belly flop contest, and I'll never forget. Our company commander saw what was happening with us. He was laying on a chase lounge, whatever, reading a book. He looked up, saw what was going on. He just closed his book, put his stuff away, got up and left because he didn't want to see whatever was going to happen next. But yeah, so. We got up to a lot of fun. We trained hard. We played
Sure.
hard. We had a good
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Great to hear it. So the Panama deployment, what were you training with local forces, or was it still just internal?
No, that we still Howard was still there. I mean, we still had Air Force Base there, and we had Fort
Hmm.
Sherman was where we went, where Bob Dylan's boat is sunk there, I think, still to this day. But we went to a little place called Fort Sherman, and we just it was really strange. You know, you'd go out in the middle of the jungle, and I mean, just seems like you're miles away from anything. And we would have live fires out there, and after the live fire, uh, there'd be 4 or 5 little kids, 7, 8, 9 years old, come out with cold grape knee highs and papayas and mangoes, and it's like, where the heck did you come from? And it's like we're just out in the middle of the jungle, and they show up with some cold sodas and
Hmm.
and fruit and would trade MREs for it or money or whatever we had.
Sure.
But yeah, that was always interesting. And we went through the JRT Jungle Training Center, JTC, or whatever it was called back then. I don't
Hmm.
I don't remember what the name of it. I've got the T-shirt somewhere at home, but yeah, the Jungle Training Center, and it was like it wasn't hard. It was just really dangerous, scary, because it wasn't really
Mm.
well maintained. Like the ropes going up the cliff looked like they were about to fall apart and stuff like that. So it wasn't really any harder than any other training we did, but it was pretty dangerous, it seemed like.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I remember our special ops training is what we called it, but we would go and we'd spend a week training or planning, and then we would spend 2 weeks executing over and over and over again. Every day we'd go from crawl, walk, run. We'd do a walkthrough during the
Hmm.
day, during daylight hours, and we would do a little faster run through, during the day, and then at night we would go and jump. And we'd do this every day for 2 weeks, and it was awesome, getting to practicing airfield seizures and raids and just all kinds of neat stuff. Getting to ride on little birds and stuff like that you don't normally get to do all the time. Sometimes there'd be mount training as well. The little city there, we'd go and do city practice fighting in the city or whatever. So yeah,
Hmm.
that was always a good time. It was very tiring. I mean, you'd be up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Is very different. It wasn't like you didn't do PT during that or anything because, well, you did if you could, if you had a break, an off day or something. But most of the time it was, get up at 6 or 7 in the morning, and you're out till 2 or 3 in the evening, or 2 or 3 in the middle of the night, doing missions.
Hmm.
Um, we would go jump on this little airfield in Alabama, and 2 different times we did it, we got shot at by locals. I think they'd seen Red Dawn or something and thought that that the Russians were somehow coming at us. But yeah, we it was funny. Nobody got hurt. I mean, it's only funny because nobody got hurt, right? But yeah,
Right. Right.
we actually did get shot at a couple times while we were doing that. Uh, I don't know.
You'd think someone would have alerted them that you guys would be there training.
I, this very small towns, most of them. So I'm sure that there's just
Hmm.
some local person that probably had a little too much to drink or something was out there and
Sure.
had just watched Red Dawn or something the week before.
Right.
Had
That's wild.
visions of Wolverines.
Right.
Yeah.
So awesome. So then that Panama deploy that operation in Panama, was that a training op or was that a
No.
deployment
So
too?
Operation Just Cause was
Hmm.
to liberate Panama from Noriega, the dictator. Basically, there had been elections and he refused to acknowledge them, and he kept himself in power and
Hmm.
stuff. And I think there were a lot of drug ties with him and stuff like that. So yeah, we went down to take him out of power. We jumped in on December 20th in 1989, and we got to come home, I think, around the 6th or 7th of January. So it wasn't too long, but it was definitely interesting. I was near the front of the airplane, so I was one of the last people to jump. Um, the person in front of me, who was our platoon medic, managed to fall down in the aircraft, and my platoon sergeant was in front of him, and he was gone, and we were still trying to get out. So, I mean, we ended up about 5 clicks off the DZ where we were supposed to be. And there were a bunch of people that ended up out there. We gathered up some folks as we were making our way back. But
Mm.
yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I was under fire while I was coming down, and after I landed, I think my parachute was in a tree, and they were probably shooting that. But uh, they were a little ways away. They weren't right on me or anything. So I was able to eventually get out of all my gear, all of my parachute gear and stuff like that, and get all my stuff up and ready to go. And finally hooked up with a couple of people, and then a few more, and we had probably 6 or 7 by the time we made it back. And we had dropped jeeps on that jump also, and we ended up hooking up with the jeeps. They were maybe a half a click off the drop zone. Um, Something I'll never forget ever. Our chaplain jumped in as well, and there was this rock arch that was over the entrance to the airfield, and I mean, Highway 1, which is the same as Pacific Coast Highway in California, goes all the way down through Central and South America, or all the way through Mexico and Central America. Not sure how far down South America it goes, but and the airfield was right off of Highway 1, and that arch was there. But as we were driving back with the Jeeps, we just hooked up with them a few minutes before and got in the Jeeps and got a ride back with them. Because, good Lord, our rucksacks were heavy. I mean, my rucksack was
Mhm.
probably 125 pounds. Plus, we used LCEs. I don't know, the load bearing equipment, with
Mhm.
a suspenders and a belt, but we had doubled up our ammunition pouches, so we had double the number of. We usually have 2, and we had 4. So our LCEs weighed about 40 pounds with all the stuff on them, with grenades and that kind of stuff, and my rucksack weighed every bit of 125 pounds. Um, we jumped at about 500 feet. It was a pretty low jump too. Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, the chaplain was on top of that rock arch, planting the flag as we drove through. So I mean, it's something I still get goosebumps just even thinking about. So yeah, explosions going off behind him and stuff. I mean, not right next to him or anything, but I mean, you could see tracers and explosions and everything in the background, and he's up there putting a flag on that thing. It was cool,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
something
that's
you'd see
pretty
in a movie.
amazing. It's not exactly. It sounds exactly like that. That's pretty wild. What was kind of your experience going through that operation like?
Uh, it was the medic. I'd gone through EMT training, so I was sort of our backup medic for our platoon. And our medic was brand new, very very green. Didn't stay long in the unit either. Really wasn't cut out for it, I think. He ended up knocking himself out. We did a 15-foot fast rope just to go out and do this other one of the follow-on missions. It was 15 feet. I mean, it wasn't. It was so low we could have almost jumped out. But they wanted to do a fast rope for whatever reason, and he fell out. He missed the rope and fell out and landed on his head, knocked himself out. So I ended up taking care of him more than I ended up doing anything else. Played a lot of solitaire. We ended up back in Tent City at Howard Air Force Base for our follow-on missions and stuff. It was. I've met some people. I worked with some people actually who were there as like teenagers and younger. And
Mm.
unlike most of the last 20 years deployments, the people there were really glad to have us come in. I mean, there were some hardline
Mhm.
supporters and people that were in the military were just doing what they were doing their job. But for the most part, the people were happy to have us there, and we're glad that we did what we did, and so it was a different experience than what I think a lot of folks experienced over in the Middle East. So I'm very thankful for that, and thankful that we were able to help those people and let them move forward. I mean, Panama is one of the richest countries in Central America now. I mean, they're doing pretty well. So, and that's
Mm.
something I try to tell my GWAT friends too, is that the perspective we have is for now. We don't know what might happen, how things might change in the future. Maybe what we
Mhm.
did will have a good impact there, and maybe it will change things there. Maybe it's just taking some time,
Mm.
and that's something I try to share with those guys and girls all I can, because
Yeah.
it's pretty. I can imagine how it feels to go and do something and then don't be appreciated at home and don't be appreciated by the people you did it for over there either. Um, and no one was really, other than the military, was actively trying to kill us. Not like everybody tried to pick up a gun and go to war against us, like happened a lot, like in Iraq and other places. So yeah,
Mhm.
it was a good
Yeah.
experience. I'm very proud of it and very proud of the outcome.
Mm. So when you finish, finishing up that deployment, what was kind of like the back end of it like, and getting back home?
A lot of spades and a lot of solitaire on the back end, just waiting to go home. We had follow-on missions, but between follow-on missions, there wasn't anything to do. Sit in tents and play cards
Mm.
and play grab ass. I mean, a few people got in trouble for different things or whatever, but yeah, it was pretty boring and after just getting shot at and stuff, people were probably not in their not thinking correctly in a lot of ways at times too. So
Mhm.
yeah, but yeah.
What was the like just mission objective landing there like on a day to day?
So we jumped in. Our we were taking our we jumped in. I jumped in at Rio Hato. We had two places where we parachuted in. Torrijos Tacumen Airport, which was the main airport for Puerto or for Panama. And then we jumped in at a military base, Rio Hato, which is now like a resort area. It's really nice, right on the beach. So yeah, but the first use of the B-1 bomber, I think, in combat there, they dropped a 2,000-pound bomb, but they didn't drop it on the barracks. They did it as a deterrent and dropped it a little ways away, a few hundred meters away, 500 meters away or something. So yeah, day to day it was, I was a private still. Um, it was boring a lot of the time, but there were, moments of terror, and most of the time it was really,
Mhm.
really boring. You know, I think that's probably true for a lot of people. I mean, it's not fun to be shot at, and that's really pretty scary. But other than that, it was not a lot of. It was hot, and it was Christmas time, and we didn't get to go home, and those kind of things. But yeah.
Mm. So getting back home, what happens next in your service?
Uh, I came back and I went to Ranger school about 4 months after we got back, I think, or went to pre-Ranger in about 4 months after we got back, and did fine in pre-Ranger, and then went to Ranger school and did pretty well in Ranger school. I recycled desert phase, which was in Utah at that time. Um, and so in mountains, we had a 7-day field problem in mountains. You spend a lot of time in classroom in mountains at first, and there's really good blueberry pancakes there. Although you don't get to really enjoy them, you eat them pretty fast. They give you one utensil, and it's a big spoon, and that's what you get in Ranger School to eat with. Or used to. It may be different now, but and I got about an hour and a half sleep in our 7-day field problem. Now, that was typical for everybody.
Mhm.
Lost a lot of weight. I think at the end of Florida, which was our next to last phase, I weighed 125 pounds. I'd lost 40 pounds and went down to 125 pounds. They feed them more now, I think. I think they don't want to be responsible for taking care of people the rest of their life after they screwed them up so bad. I think the military's learning a little. But yeah, so in Florida, we did a 14-day field problem. There's not a whole lot of uh, classroom time there like there was in mountains. We did mountaineering and knots and stuff like that in ranger school in mountains, but and so there was a lot of classroom time there. But we did a 14-day field problem, and I got about 3.5 hours sleep, and two of that was because I was a fire team leader, and we were out on left flank security, and all eight of us fell asleep. And I was so asleep that the RI came up, and he didn't. In Ranger School, they make you tie everything to yourself. Like you have to have everything
Hmm.
tied to you, your weapon, everything. I had my M16 was tied to me, but it was laying next to me, and as far as I knew, I was awake. I could still see what was going on in front of me, but I couldn't. I was dreaming whatever was going on in front of
Yeah.
me. The RI came up and actually untied my rifle from me. He didn't cut it or anything. He untied it and took it, and I didn't have my rifle when we got back after they woke us up and made us come back. So yeah, I got a major minus for that. But my buddy, who was my ranger
Hmm.
buddy, got to go for his patrol, so it was okay. I didn't. I'd take a major minus as long as I didn't ding him on his patrol and he got his go. So I was pretty happy with that. But ended up going to desert and ended up recycling desert, which was fine. They make you sleep 5 hours because they actually had us live fire. So they give you more sleep and a little more food. So they don't want you really being so sleepy you shoot at each other with live rounds. So yeah,
Hmm.
but yeah, Ranger School was terrible and it sucked, but it wasn't hard per se. It was mostly just persistence, like a lot of stuff in the military was for me, is persistence. Just being able to keep going when things really didn't seem like they were going to be fun. Never forget the 4th of July. I was in mountains, and we were walking right by the national park, and we could hear people like all night long. It was a full moon. We could hear people partying and smell the food that they were cooking, and the RI had told us we're just gonna go over here about 500 yards. It's 4th of July tomorrow. We're gonna get in patrol base and we're all gonna go to sleep. And we're walking, and the next thing I know, we're still walking, and the sun's coming up. We never stopped. We walked all night long, and that was pretty typical. I mean, it's mostly they're trying
Hmm.
to mess with you. Yeah, like Desert Storm, the first one. The invasion of Iraq in the early 90s happened while I was in Ranger School. And, they told us that our units had all deployed trying to get us to quit. It's like, well, nothing I can do about it. They're not going to send me like this anyway. They're not going to send me anywhere weighing 125 pounds, needing to eat some food for a while. So yeah, I
Hmm.
didn't worry about that. There wasn't anything I could do, and I figured they weren't telling the truth anyway. By that time, I'd figured out the system. So
Sure. Yeah. What would be like a advice kind of takeaway in terms of getting through Ranger School?
just don't quit. Just be
Mhm.
persistent. Never give up, and just do your best. Be a good follower. Is always going to be a really good, because only one person gets to be in that leadership position, at a time, and they don't be able to do that unless they have good followers to help them get through that. They're not going to be successful. So yeah, be a good follower, be a good, help, do whatever you can. I carried the 60 a whole lot of times for guys that were getting smoked. So, it's whatever you got to do to help a ranger buddy get through it.
Mm.
And if you
And
if you
so,
if you
yeah.
hallucinate and you know you're hallucinating, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, exactly. So when you finish up with Ranger School, like first of all, how long was that?
Well, I went on the extended version, so it was about 4 months instead of three. Yeah, I think it
Hmm.
was
What
72
was like
days.
the?
72 days when
Yeah.
I went through.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and
So
I was there. Go ahead.
when you finished it, what was that like for you?
Uh, well, it meant I got to stay. If you went to Ranger school and failed, you didn't get to stay in the Ranger Battalion
Hmm.
at that time. So it was really critical, a really critical leadership thing for me. Um, and I got back and I went back to my platoon and was there for let's see, I graduated in September. I was there for another 3 months, and they needed the other Alpha Company mortars had needed they were losing some NCOs. They like had someone levied to Korea, and another guy was going to the SF or going to SF, and they'd lost some folks, and there were a lot of E4s in Bravo Company where I was that we had all graduated Ranger School very close to each other, and the opportunities for advancement were more limited, just because of the number of folks in the same
Hmm.
position. So I volunteered, went over to Alpha Company and moved over, and that's where my buddy Fred was that I'd gone to basic training with, and he was a section sergeant by then because he was prior service, so he had already gotten his E6. Um, and it was great. It was really, really good for me. It worked out very well. I went to infantry mortar platoon leaders course, which was a gentleman's course, which we weren't really used to in a Ranger battalion. But learned a lot about mortars during that course. There were E7s and E8s from SF there, as well as officers, and it was a really good course. Got my jump masters and got to do that a few times, and that was exciting and really changed the jumping for me and made it a lot less scary. Just because learning more about it and knowing more about it and just being comfortable with it, I guess, or more comfortable. Although it was never comfortable, I was always scared jumping. Uh,
Walk us through a little bit of that course. I mean, what like in detailed perspective, what was it like? What were you doing?
and the jump master course was very much a gentleman's course, but you had to practice
Hmm.
on your own, like going through the JMPI, uh, where you're checking a jumper to make sure that all of their gear is right and safe, that it's safe for them to jump, that their parachute is right and their gear is right and nothing's
Yeah.
misrouted, everything is where it's supposed to be and like it's supposed to be. I mean, that's timed. They time that and grade you on that, and if you have one mistake, you fail, and you only get a couple of times to do that. So or else you wash out of the course. So it was awesome. It On our graduation jump, I don't know what happened to me. Maybe it's nerves or something, but I had an accident uh, as I jumped and didn't have to go to graduation because of that accident. And not a like I wasn't hurt, but like I had an accident in my pants. Like it was like I don't know what happened to me there, but like I jumped out and I pooped my pants. It was the weirdest thing. I didn't feel sick before that, but I guess I was. Probably nerves. Uh, and
Mm.
so they they made me go see the medic, and I didn't have to go to our graduation thing, which was fine. It worked out all right. I got my wings and all that, so I was pretty excited about it. And right after I got back from that, we had our special operations training, and I got chosen to be a jump master on that. So my very first time jump mastering was out of a C5 Galaxy, which was pretty
Mm.
new. I mean, they had just figured out how to slow it down enough for it not to blow panels on the parachutes, when we jumped. So yeah, if you're going too fast out of those aircraft and you jump out, it tends to kind of take some of the panels out and it screws up the parachute. But yeah, that was awesome. So I loved it. Loved doing that. And then we were training. I can't remember what we were doing. It's like August of the next year, and we had a helicopter jump, and it was just my platoon. I think just a mortars platoon, and we had the wind was up quite a bit. It's like 14 knots because 15 we can't jump, or over 15 we can't jump. So it was like at 14 knots. So the helicopter was hovering and dropping us out. It wasn't really doing anything, but it was over the trees where it was letting people out because they were blowing into onto the drop zone from where we were dropping them. And as soon as I jumped, the wind died completely, and I ended up in the trees and in a bunch of deadfall, and messed up my knee that I'd messed up in a car
Mm.
accident, and just didn't tell the Army about when I joined. So it that was pretty much the end of my field time, and ended up having to have surgery and stuff like that. Ended
Mm.
up getting out not too long after that, and it was Clinton was trying to get rid of people at the time and had a drawdown going in early '92, and they offered me some money to get out on a medical, and I said, okay, I guess I will. I knew at that point that I probably wasn't going to make it a career, but if I could have stayed in a regiment, I probably would have stayed longer. But I knew that I didn't want to go anyplace else. I was pretty happy there, and didn't really want to go backwards from there. I guess how would I felt about it at the
Yeah.
time. Not that that's the right way to feel, but that's kind of how I felt about it at the time, and just
Yeah.
wasn't interested in SF, and didn't think that I knew I wasn't good enough to go to like Delta Force or anything like that. So
So something that I feel doesn't get enough uh, attention, recognition, whatever is the right way to phrase that, is jumping is very dangerous. It's very easy to do something like, twist your ankle or twist your knee, which is like a lasting, really pain injury, especially if you're someone, infantry, rucking, needing to use your feet and legs.
yeah, even after that jump, I didn't like. I stayed in the field for the next 3 days or 4 days that we were out in the field,
Hmm.
and ended up swimming the Chattahoochee twice that night to get gear over, and did the mission even with a messed up, swollen up leg, swollen up knee.
Hmm.
But I I knew lots of people that did 30-mile road marches with stress fractures in their feet, and you
Right.
know one of my buddies, broke his leg on the jump into Panama and crawled all the way to the casualty collection point. And I don't know how far that was, but it wasn't right where he was. And this was in the middle of a firefight,
Right.
and he took
Yeah.
himself there so somebody else could stay in the fight. He didn't try to get any help. He just went. So yeah, that
Hmm.
was
Yeah.
it's yeah, and it's just not quitting. It's just being
Right.
being strong
Exactly. Yeah.
enough to know that you're not going to quit. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah. That's the mentality that you learn and take forward with you for sure.
yeah.
So I was going to ask like what your thought process was around that time in terms of finishing, but I guess you kind of answered it, where the injury plus just political dynamic of that time led you
And
to saying, all
I
right,
got
well,
I
it
got in
sounds like
trouble
that's it.
too. I got busted off base on just some stuff, and was not making great decisions, because of the trauma
Mm.
and stuff that I'd gone through. And I knew that I spent 6 months there, having to be in charge of people who were getting chaptered out of the Army. So my last 6 months were kind
Mm.
of a downer. I had guys that had no motivation whatsoever after being, in a platoon with lots of motivation. So,
Right.
um, I was an E5, so I had to kind of buck up and make sure that these guys did what they were supposed to and got to the appointments they were supposed to go to, because it took a long time to get people chaptered out back then. I don't know about now, but it took a long time. And
Mm.
yeah, so yeah, and after getting in trouble, it's like I I did it to myself so that I didn't have any other choices. I think, really is what I did.
Mm. Yeah, noted. So, I mean, you touched on something that, as we're going to kind of segue now into finishing service and transition period military to civilian life. What you touched on right now, I think, is a very important thing to highlight, where you went from a high motivation environment to a low motivation environment, or just an environment with no ecosystem of motivation. In other
Yeah.
words, adult life in your day-to-day and civilian world, right? So I
Yeah.
guess talk to us a little bit about that transition, what that was like for you, and how you were kind of moving through that.
So I didn't, I didn't move through it very well at all.
Hmm.
After I got out, I spent a year and locked myself away and really didn't talk to anybody, do anything. I did, I did make I got put out on a medical, so I was able to go through the VA and ended up, finally, I got into vocational rehab and they sent me to school for a while, although that wasn't a great fit either. But um, it my transition was pretty terrible, honestly, and a lot of it was on me. I wasn't motivated. I was blaming myself for getting in trouble, which, was my fault, but still, I wasn't looking at it in a healthy way and trying to get past it. And I spent a
Hmm.
year in a really dark place, and just um, not doing much of anything. I'd gotten some money from the army to get out, and I just basically used that money and lived on it for a year and didn't do a darn thing. And really, I don't know. I don't even know how I came out of that. What eventually got me turned around. I guess the money ran out, and I had to get a job. Maybe that may have been part of it. But yeah, and
Good motivator.
I and I gravitated back to what I knew. I went back into, well, I
Mm.
was, after I got into vocational rehab, I was going to school, but I also had a job. I was working for a cabinet shop, making molding, like architectural molding. And I did that while I was in school. And in my junior year, I got a job offer to go to work doing what I wanted to do. So I never finished college, which I really regret now, but it was just, I wasn't feeling it. It was hard to be there, and I hadn't dealt with any of the trauma in my life at all. Not the car wrecks, not combat, not any of it. And I caused a lot of problems for myself because of it. That's which just what we kind of do. But
Hmm.
my junior year, I got an offer to go to work for a mechanical contractor as an assistant project manager. And I was like, heck yeah, this is what I'm going to school for and what I want to do anyway. So I did it. And the company I went to work for ended up closing their doors like a year after I got there. So I had to figure something out and ended up moving up to Oregon. I lived there for about a year, and then I went back down. I moved to Southern California, and I got a job there working for a fire and water restoration company, and met my wife, my current wife, and really started to change things, and got back into the sort of the management side of construction, and uh, eventually went to work for a company called PCL Construction out in Los Angeles.
Hmm.
They built what was then the Staples Center, and I was one of their first hires after they finished the Staples Center, and went to work for them. And they're a national company, pretty large, and really
Hmm.
got thrown into the fire there and started learning a lot and started figuring out what I was good at, in the industry as a project manager. Because I'd always been in the industry, but mostly in the field, and then started figuring out, this is something that I am actually okay at and pretty good at. And as long as I apply
Mm.
myself, everything worked out. And
How did going like one step back to that, assistant project manager job? How did you even get exposed to that to begin with?
my cousin, I knew somebody.
Okay, yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, I ended up actually even working for him, so it was great. We
Mm.
he tossed me in the deep end too, and let me learn some stuff.
Hmm.
We designed a piping system, plumbing and piping system for a VA building in Waco, Texas. We and I had to build the specifications for it and everything because it was a design build. So it was really cool to get that kind of exposure, so much exposure to all of that all at one time, in just a short amount of time at that. Um, yeah,
For sure.
uh, loved it.
So, so I want to touch on, granted, take a step back. I want to touch on transition period and kind of hindsight advice.
Sure.
That said, what I always like to add to that question and that thought is, of course, a transition is and can be a forever thing, right? I mean, dealing with experiences can continue throughout life, but I just want to use this kind of time frame of you starting to get into civilian, profession and such as just a plug for you to talk about, now that you have the knowledge you have today in hindsight, what could you have done differently or better, to improve that process?
I, for me, it was just really dealing with my traumas, and
Hmm.
uh, not wallowing in them, and
Yeah.
just I, getting in trouble. I felt like I let everybody down, and I think it was
Hmm.
that more than anything. It was not, because there was such a brotherhood, where I was, and that was the big thing for me, was feeling like I let everyone down. It was really only me that I let down, but that feeling of letting everybody down was really what made it tough for me. And find purpose. I think if you can find something that you're passionate about, then do that thing. I started writing some after I got out. Even though I quit for a long time after that, but I started writing and had some stuff that I'd written that really resonated, and helped me sort of, I think, work through some of that once I got into school, and took a lot of creative writing classes and professional writing, just whatever, any writing classes I could get, even though I was a mechanical engineering major. I enjoyed the writing and that kind of stuff, and still do to this day. But yeah, that find your way to find something that gives you purpose, and get up and do that every day. I think that was what was missing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's great advice, and I totally agree that writing is a great tool. I mean, regardless of what you're writing, for what reason, it doesn't have to have a reason or purpose even. Just
Yeah.
you start writing, it's a great kind of mechanism of mental health and just getting ideas out and not getting stuck in your own head as I like to kind of think of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And breathing is something that I've learned since then that helps
Hmm.
slow the swirl, as I like to call it. Whenever your mind is doing that thing, and it feels like you can't break out of that, breathing is a really great tool for that as well.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. So going back to kind of where we had left off in your story, you're at PCL. At what point do you start getting into lean construction?
That was later. So I left.
Hmm.
I was living in Los Angeles, in the Los Angeles area, north of Los Angeles, but was working downtown, and was really ready. And my wife was ready too, even though she grew up out there. She was ready to be somewhere different. We had a 9-year-old daughter and just had a brand new baby born, and we just didn't want to have. It just didn't feel like the right place to raise our family. So
Hmm.
my cousin again, who had gotten me in the door on the mechanical side, was in San Antonio, and he was doing some work with Skanska. And he said, hey, they're looking for folks. Are you interested? And yeah, so I made a couple of trips down and spoke with them, and we made a deal, and we ended up relocating in about, yeah, it's 2008, to San Antonio, and been there ever since. Live there. I'm not there now, but lived there ever since. And it was a great move for us as a family. Got us to a different place, and just it's been a great place where our kids have really grown up. So it's been awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great to hear it. So where does I guess obviously right in San Antonio at some point, lean construction pops up in the radar. Talk to us about how that process went.
So I had a break from Skanska in the middle. I'd worked for them for about 7.5 years, but I left in the middle and went to work for Turner Construction for about
Hmm.
18 months, a year and a half, and that's where I really got my biggest exposure to lean. Got taught a bunch, went to a bunch of classes, and went to their advanced lean workshop, and just really started to see how that could make a difference. Then went back after that 18 months. Went back to Skanska. They made me an offer I couldn't refuse. But I did a lot of traveling with them also. Ended up, living away from my family quite a bit when I was
Hmm.
working for Skanska, and that was really, really hard. Um, like now.
Yeah.
But you can't. That's the problem with construction. You can't always pick where it is.
Hmm.
Where it's going to happen at. You have to kind of be a little bit of a gypsy about it, just
Yep.
because of the way the work is, the nature of the work.
Yep.
But so I took that back to Skanska and became a lean leader there for them and helping them sort of roll out things there. Um, Worked for them for another 3 years or so, and then they asked me to do some traveling, and I didn't want to, and
Hmm.
so we parted ways, and I went to work for a local GC who in San Antonio who also practiced lean, and got to help them with a few things there while I was there. But they had their name is Spa Glass. They I call them small. They do $1 billion a year probably, but mostly just in Texas. Yeah, small, right?
Right.
uh, Yeah, so they have this program called Leadership Through Teamwork, LTT, and it's a week-long intensive training, and you go stay off-site, away from home in a hotel or whatever resort, and you work from 7 o'clock in the morning till 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night every day for 5 days. And it's how they build leaders internally. It's a great
Mhm.
program. I really, really, it was awesome. They brought in a consultant to help with a lot of it. And I came away from that knowing that I wanted lean to be the focus of my career. I mean, that
Mhm.
was the epiphany I got from it because of the way that the respect for people part of lean is what really drew me to it. And I've always had an affinity for the field, just because of the
Mhm.
way that I came up in the industry. And 3 months after LTT, they weren't real happy about it, but I left and started my own company, started my own consulting company, helping out more people than just them with uh, learning lean, and
Mhm.
learning how to apply the principles. And did that for about 6 years, and COVID really put a hamper in everything. It really
Right.
slowed things down for me, and it's just been. I've had a couple of knee replacements, so it's been a few different things that made me decide to come back into the workforce. But yeah, and now I'm here in the largest data center in the United States, at least right now. I'm sure there'll be another one before we're finished that's bigger, but yeah, it's big enough that they've hired 3 GCs for it. So
Yeah.
and we're not, it's not a JV. We're not together. We all have different
Mhm.
contracts with the owner. So yeah.
Wild. So before we jump into that project, what I wanted kind of to ask you for you to break down is those core principles of lean for those who are not familiar.
Yeah, so lean is primarily about respect for people and practicing continuous improvement. Um, Respect for people is the way that it comes from the Japanese. Toyota
Mhm.
primarily is where we get the ideas from. But those ideas actually come from the U.S. During World War II. Um, we didn't have any manufacturing capacity after the Depression. We had lost like most of our manufacturing capacity during the Depression, and the Depression didn't end until 1942, which most people don't understand or even know.
Mhm.
We still had 14.5% unemployment in 1941, and that only changed with the advent of World War II, and all the people that went to work. But we had to figure out how to scale up our manufacturing, because that's really what won World War II for us, was being able to get beans and bullets and jeeps and all the rifles and all the things that we needed to prosecute the war all the way over to
Mhm.
Europe and all the way over to Asia. And that's how we won. Um, and those principles were uh, taught by a bunch of really smart guys like Sam Drucker and some others that really learned that process and how to figure that out. Because what we found out, just like the Army, most people may be familiar with what's called a shake and bake officer or an NCO. Like during World War II, they would take people out of basic training who had high potential, that they, the drill instructors recognize high potential in these people, and they would send them to a 90-day course and make them 90-day, what they called a 90-day wonder, and they'd make them an NCO or an officer, depending on which course they went to after that 90 days of training, because we didn't have enough of those. Well, they figured that we could do the same thing in industry, and that's what they did, and they came up with a system to do that. And that's really the basis of where lean comes from. And they understood that, just you're not going to flog people to work themselves to death, even if it is over war, that's a world war. You have to treat them correctly and train them correctly and give them the right instructions and all of those things. And so those people, after World War II ended, we sent a bunch of those same people over to Japan to help them with their rebuilding. And some of the companies like Sony and Toyota and some others really latched onto those ideals and took it further, frankly, and made it into something more, made it into culture, and company culture. And that's really where it comes from. But the respect for people, really, some of the translations we've got from translating the stuff from Toyota over to the U.S. hasn't been quite right. And respect for people is really much deeper than that. And a more literal translation is holding precious what it is to be human. And I really like that, because when we really think about what the human condition, and understanding that the person next to us may be going through something, something hard in their life, and we really have to make room for that, and we can't just be about improvement 100%. We've got to start with people in the center as the central idea, or else we won't get very far. So we're not improving things, we're improving people. So yeah, that's really what lean is about. It's about finding ways to continuously improve the work you're doing, and gaining a deeper understanding of the work as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which,
So go ahead.
I love that, because the military has direct ties to all that. We always talked about building muscle memory. When I was in, I think there's a lot more lean ideas and stuff now in the military than there were then. But we talked about building muscle memory, and what that does, building muscle memory means that your body can react and do things without your brain having to be fully engaged in it. And that means that your brain can be fully engaged, or be partially engaged at least, in looking to make things better. Where can we improve this? How could this be better? And that's where you get to with it. That's what there's really a good military tie into that as well for me.
Amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. Well said. Big fan of lean. Love seeing, I think it's been like increasing in terms of awareness and implementation at the same time. And I think you were kind of alluding to this. I don't think it's like necessarily widespread yet. Where do you see it, or how do you see it getting adapted more in industry?
Processes, people are just think that they can change the processes without changing the way that they approach things, and it's not as effective. Sure. You've got to put the respect for people part first, or else the processes, you can give them as many processes as you want. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just not going to be as effective.
Yeah, I think it's easy to see how that's creating a bottleneck toward adoption and just improvement, generally speaking. Yeah. Well, going to the project that you're at today, walk us through that a little bit. Give us a little more detail in terms of, you spoke about 3 main GCs on the job, biggest data center. What's going on there?
It's amazing. Right now we're just doing earthwork. We're getting ready to start some of the foundation work and stuff like that really soon, but it's been, over 5 million cubic yards of dirt moved. The site is 1 mile wide by 5 miles long, and doesn't have room. Amazingly, I mean, like some of our storm structures, for instance, they're 8 foot by 8 foot box culverts. That's what our
Mhm.
storm structures are. It's just the scale here is just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes we did a uh, we what am I, oh, a sand table, but we did it on the floor with tape and laid out the buildings at 187th scale, and then bought some Tonka toys that matched that to show where the equipment was going to go, because people think that there's a lot of room, and there is, but once you start putting all of these utilities in there, the room goes away very quickly,
Hmm.
especially when you're considering, because it's Class C soil here. Some of our excavations are 100 feet wide or wider, and that's the width of the ditch, and then 20 feet deep. But you've got to, yeah. So the scale. I mean, we've got something like over 500 pieces of equipment on this site, heavy equipment that's moving dirt. Yeah, it's I, I've never, none of us, I mean, none of us here have ever been a part of anything this big.
Hmm.
I mean, that's the other part too, is learning how to do a project at mega scale,
Hmm.
and because this is the biggest one. It's the biggest data center in the U.S. right now. I mean, I'm sure there's another one bigger that's probably in development right now, but it's not started yet. So yeah, we
Yeah.
get
I
to claim
mean,
that at least for a little while.
yeah, or at least you can claim you're setting the precedent for the next kind of, trajectory of size projects. Are you like collaborating with the other GCs on the project, or everyone's just kind of in their
Yeah,
lane building their what
they
their scope of
they
work?
they call it cooperation.
Okay.
So like it's a competition and cooperation put together. So
Right.
we 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 all have to be successful in order for the project to be successful, and I think
Hmm.
we all realize that. So there's a lot of cooperation, and a lot of, yeah. Uh, we don't All of our work enables their work, so they
Hmm.
want us to be successful so that they can get their work started in a good in the right manner. So
Right.
yeah, I think we see that, and the owner that we're with really understands lean principles, and embraces lean principles, and owners have their own take on lean, but and not always a great take, but they do, and they understand it, and they're working collaboratively as well. So
Mm.
yeah, yeah,
Cool.
we're working for a pretty good owner. I can't say who, but
Sure.
anybody can
Sure.
look
Yeah.
it up and figure it out.
Yeah.
That's on them.
Right. Exactly. So talk to us about, powering this data center. We hear about that kind of problem, not problem, all over the news in terms of how to power data centers. What's the real world kind of implementation issue or no issue?
It's a problem. It,
Mm.
it really is. But we have two. We have a large gas pipeline, so we're going to have two cogeneration plants here on site. We've just actually turned over one pad, and we're turning over the other pad next week or the week after. So
Mm.
yeah. So they're going to start building those, and it's a natural gas fired turbine, and that creates power, plus it creates power in a bunch of different ways. The turbine turning, and the whole deal. So it's a pretty
Mm.
efficient way of doing it. So we're going to be
It
powering a lot of northern Louisiana with that. So
Wow. Wow. So I mean, is that fair to say there's a power issue for these data centers, or is the reality that if you're building something that is very power intensive, requires a lot of power, that you should just simply add to that, to support that capability?
I I think, I mean, they bought the land, and we developed
Yeah.
the land so that the cogen plants could go in. So yeah, I think that they have to have that kind of thought pattern and
Right.
collaboration, and those kind of things have to happen, or else it's you're not going to get the power. I mean,
Right.
uh, we have ponds. There's so many ponds here. They're going to use the ponds to use for cooling. I
Wow.
mean, they're, yeah, like they look like, well, they look like lakes, but they call them ponds. I mean, they're huge. But all of that'll be used for facility water to help, cool the hot aisles and stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah, wow, very,
got to
very
have a lot of
interesting.
water too.
Mm, okay, yeah.
It
So
takes a lot of
is
water. Yeah.
intentionally in an area where there's those ponds slash lakes? Is that a part of like the equation?
No, we're creating them.
Oh, you're
We're
creating them.
digging them
Yeah,
and
okay.
putting them in.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
that's
I
wild.
mean, there are some wetlands here, but the wetlands are protected, so we have to
Mm,
create ponds so that we can use the water. Yeah. Of
wow,
course, the water's not real deep.
sure, sure. That's wild nonetheless. Wow. So something we didn't touch on yet is, I mean, you kind of have alluded to this a few times, as we've been talking, is translatable skills, military to built environment. So I want to, kind of give the opportunity to plug in some translatable skill sets.
Leadership, just the leadership stuff that you learn in the military, and how to be a good teammate, and how to help other folks, and being available, and man, being on time. Just there's a lot of very small things that you really learn in the military that, gosh, they're directly translatable to making you a star employee for most places. Just that's not things that kids learn anymore like they used to. I don't think as much. And maybe it was that way back in my day too. But uh, yeah, so there are a lot of transferable skills. You see a lot of people working in safety that
Mm,
are veterans. For whatever reason, that's I think the bar to entry there is a little easier, and a lot less school involved in that a lot of times. Although you can go to get a 4 year degree for it, but it's not. That's the other thing about construction is you don't have to go to school necessarily
mhm,
for it. Sometimes you get a lot of OJT, and guys get to be outside. You get to be around. I mean, the culture here is not the same as the military, but it's not that different either. It's a
mhm.
pretty male dominated industry, just like the military is. And uh, not a lot of slack given, a lot of jokes played on people, a lot of things like that. So yeah, there are a lot of parallels that make
Mhm.
construction a very good choice for someone coming out of the military for sure.
Yep. Yep. Well said. I agree that it's a great environment for veterans to join. Hence the purpose of the show, right? Is to promote that fact and
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh
promote
yeah.
service members to come and join the industry for sure.
Anybody that's looking for work, this is the industry to do it in if you've transitioned out of the military for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So before we close out the kind of professional civilian professional side, and then we'll jump into the mental health awareness around the construction industry. Anything I didn't ask you that you wanna add?
No, I think we got through most of it.
Awesome,
I'm
awesome.
sure there's some stories on my blog people can read.
Sure,
So
yeah.
I
Happy to
think
plug that
I
in.
shared my blog with you. So yeah,
Perfect,
yeah.
perfect.
Lucky hates trucks is a funny story from back when I was doing dynamite. So anybody wants to read that one, that's a pretty funny one.
Awesome, awesome. So we'll segue that into going into what you mentioned is your passion today and what you're really driving awareness around, which is mental health and suicide in construction. When you told me the numbers, I was aware that this is an issue. However, not to the extent of reality. I was shocked by the numbers that you told me. So please
Yeah,
share that with us. What's going on?
yeah, yeah. So the suicide rate in the U.S. is right around 16 and a half people per 100,000. And for veterans, the numbers are about double, almost double that, about 33.5%, or 33.5 people out of every 100,000 people die by suicide. Construction is almost double the veteran rate. It's 53.4 per 100,000 people. And, all the things that we touted about construction that is very like the military, there are some differences too. Um, when we deploy a lot of time, most of the time as a unit. right? And when you deploy as a unit, then there is a chance that you lose your good friends. Yes, I understand that. But there's a certain camaraderie that's already in place before you deploy a lot of times, right? Because you've been together, you've worked together, you know each other. Deploying in as for construction isn't necessarily like that, and I think that's one of the big differences. People have to work away from home a lot. I'm doing it now, doing it from a much better place than I did earlier in my life, but I am doing it now. And you have to, I mean, because construction doesn't always happen around the corner from your house. Sometimes, depending on who you're working for, you may have to travel. Um, it's hard work. It's really hard on people physically. Um, yeah, just the numbers themselves, just so to give more context, we lose about 1,000 people a year to construction accidents, and we lose 6 times that number to suicide. And that's scary and sad and preventable, totally preventable. But people haven't really been talking about it a lot. But these numbers have been there for a while. It's not new. When I first discovered the numbers, they were from like 2018, and I wrote an article about it, and it's on my blog as well. It's called "The Mental Health Crisis in Construction." And awareness. I did some other podcasts, and the Lean Builder podcast. We did a series there, and I've even written some poems, about being in construction and what that means and stuff. But I just at some point I felt like awareness wasn't really enough, that I wanted to figure out how to do more. So I went and got my mental health first aid certification, and that was pretty cool. It gave me some tools to understand how to talk to somebody who might be having a mental health challenge, and how to talk to them about suicide and all of that. And that was good. And I actually, from the article I wrote, I've gotten some calls from strangers and friends alike who were not in good places. Because I put my phone number on that article I wrote and said, call me. I rather than you making a bad decision that can't be reversed, just call me. And a few people did. And that was before I even had the training. But then I went and got the training, and then, I wanted to do more, even more from there. So I actually went and became an instructor to teach mental health first aid. So, and mental health first aid works just like regular first aid does. You're just meant to be a person who is the bridge between someone having a mental health challenge and them getting the appropriate help that they need. So, yeah, just like regular first aid, if somebody, cuts themselves or whatever, you're there as a first aid person to help them until the paramedics arrive or whoever arrives that can help them, medics or whoever that is. So, and mental health first aid works the exact same way. And it's a certification course. It's hard because you spend, it's an 8-hour course and it's a certification course, but you spend 8 hours talking about mental health issues and suicide, and you need a little self-care after that. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So
But yeah.
as you were explaining that, and first of all, the numbers are absolutely shocking. Um, I mean, I just hope that awareness continues to grow. I think it has been growing, maybe not, I mean, certainly not fast enough, but nonetheless, I do think awareness is spreading a little bit, thanks to people like you. Um, as you were describing this, well, what I just had a thought is that lean, I'd imagine, would help in putting a dent into those numbers, naturally speaking, just because of the, value system of the mission set of lean construction.
hmm Yeah, and that's really why I felt like it was for me, respect for people is the most important part of lean. We can figure out the how to do something, but we're going to figure it out better if we've got mutual respect for each other,
Hmm.
and makes us better collaborators and everything. So yeah, for me, it just made sense, that this was something that well, I mean, frankly, when I read the numbers, it just broke my freaking heart.
Hmm.
It just did, and it It's like, okay, I've been in some rough patches myself and not felt real great before, and I've been in therapy for a few years now, and I think that was probably helpful for me as well, to just kind of learn to uh, how to deal with things, and I'll spend time. I'll teach people how to. Uh, my favorite go-to for breathing is 4-7-8. I don't know if you're
Hmm.
familiar with 4-7-8 or not,
Hmm.
but yeah.
I am,
So
but you could go ahead and describe it,
four
please.
seconds
So,
breathing in.
mhm.
Yeah, 4 seconds. You breathe in for 4 seconds. You hold your breath for seven, and you breathe out slowly for eight. And I use it pretty much every day in my
Hmm.
meditation, and that's a for me, meditation is something that I can't start the day without. So
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, well said. I'm definitely going to I'm gonna be adding your blog in the show notes. I'm also going to add that article that you wrote for awareness, mental health awareness in construction industry. I think it's super important to continue
sure.
pushing that. Um, so that's, I mean, it's amazing to see that you are pushing that mission. I think that's also partly how we connected. Also through a mutual friend, Scott, who also has a podcast and had you on. So shout out to Scott. Um, so yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that, and it's really great to see what you're doing in the industry as it relates to mental health awareness.
Well, and this owner that we're working for even has that requirement written in,
Awesome.
for every 50 employees that we have to have someone, that each partner, each contractor has to have someone uh, who's certified in mental health first aid. So
Mm.
I'm getting lots of opportunities and lots of touch points here. Unfortunately, it's also a really high stress environment. I mean, it just is because it's the biggest data center. So it's going to be.
Yeah.
And we've had some folks who have had some mental health challenges here as well, and unfortunately, lots of opportunity to use my skills.
Mm.
But as long as they can figure that out and maybe move forward and get some help, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'll pay that price every day.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, do you see that dynamic that you described where ownership or G whoever on the chain of a project requires a certain ratio for their teams? Do you see that as being kind of like a significant, I don't know, placing a dent in that number?
I, Anytime that an owner takes a position on something like that, it's going to
Mm.
be big because they control what happens. They really have responsibility for culture on construction projects,
Mm.
and they don't pretend that they can cede that role to the general contractor a lot of times, but they can't.
Right.
It's non-transferable.
Mm.
The general contractor has a part to play in that culture as well. I'm not saying they don't, but the owner has the biggest part to play because they decide where the money goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Good, interesting point. I see that what you just described there as a unfortunately like a big, I don't know what the right word is there, but like gap in terms of solving the issue where, at least in my experience, I see a lot of times, ownership wanting kind of like a more hands-off approach, expecting the GC to take on that hands-on approach, which I think would be perceived as this dynamic of requiring, you know, health professionals for X amount of employees.
Yeah, and owners have to understand that having people hurt building your project is no different having people hurt using your project,
Yeah,
after it's built. There is no difference.
yeah,
And until they accept that and believe that and agree to that, then we're going to continue to have that gap.
yeah,
Um, you know, people work a lot of hours in this industry, which we've had lots of studies done that show that's really bad for you.
yeah,
And I don't know that there's a lot about this industry that I can change, but maybe person by person, I can help someone maybe get through a hard time that they're having
yeah.
and get on to the next thing. So, that's kind of my goal because at first it was like, how do I go about helping change this? Because I can't make owners do better
Hmm.
necessarily. I can tell them what's better and point it out to them, but it's up to them to make those changes. But if I can, talk to each person individually or whatever and help the people that need it, then, I am making a change. And being an instructor is very fulfilling as well, even though it's hard, because I'm making more people like me that want to do the same thing, want to help other people. So it's really crucial.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, awesome to hear what you're doing, and very happy to be sharing it. Um, something that came to mind is, maybe, I don't know if you've tried this, but it would be getting in front of owners, just generally speaking, like not even necessarily for a specific project, right? Just getting in front of developers to bring awareness to how they can change this dynamic, so that when a project comes up, they're aware of that before, funds are allocated and contracts are signed, and et cetera, et cetera.
And the cost per person for this training is so cheap. I mean, it really
Mm,
is. When you think about what the loss of a single person does to your project,
yeah.
if they die by suicide, I mean, it changes the whole culture overnight.
Hmm.
It's like having someone die on your project, in an accident. Same thing. It changes the culture of the project overnight, and not in a good way.
Yeah,
Uh,
agreed. Yeah.
you know, and and that's um, I get up and speak about it as often as I can. We
Yeah.
had a local safety conference here, and I went to that, and with another young person that I work with here, and we got up and spoke about the same thing, and it was a surprise to a lot of those people as well, and they're in safety. So
Hmm.
yeah. What we see though is mental health struggles are hidden. We
Hmm.
hide them from each other a lot, and they're hidden on job sites, and they're hidden in projects, and uh, you know, just shining a light on that dark place, and having people see it, I think is just the crucial thing.
Hmm. Yep. Absolutely agreed. Absolutely agreed. All right, Brian. So we're gonna close out with two final questions. We'll start with any book or books you like to recommend to the audience.
A really impactful book for me, and I love to do what's called a lean book study on it, is Leadership and Self-Deception. That was an epiphany for me to understand that all the things that really make me angry that other people do are grounded in me.
Mhm.
And in the things that that I'm probably doing that I'm mad about,
Mhm.
and it it's just a really great book. I highly recommend it, and the best way to read that book is to get a group of friends and do it a couple chapters at a time, and just have a book study about it. You
Mhm.
go and you read a couple of chapters and you come back and you talk about it. Then you go read a couple more and you come back and you talk about it. And what did you get out of it? And I actually did that book for a group of Rangers as well. So
Mhm.
that was fun. That was really fun. A couple of them said, I wish I'd read this before my last divorce.
Yeah.
Things might have gone differently for me. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's understanding that the things that we really get angry at other people about are the things that we hate most about ourselves most of the
Yep.
time.
Yep. I'd suggest you do a few sessions in therapy, and you'll start to understand that kind of a concept. So that sounds really interesting. I haven't heard about that book, and I'm definitely putting that on my list, and it'll be in the show notes as well.
Well, there's a series of three, so that they're all sort of
Mm,
around that, but that's the first one. So yeah, and it's
awesome.
not written by an individual person; it's written by the Arbinger Institute. So help you find that.
Neat. Okay, awesome. Awesome. Last question is wellness practice. So we touched on it a little bit. What does your wellness practice look like?
I I meditate every day,
Mm,
and I've found out through therapy that that's something that I have to do because of the trauma that I had in my life, and it's just a way for me to wake up every day and level set me, and have me be the best version of me I can be. And I practice my breathing during my meditations, and it doesn't take me a long time. It's 10 minutes, but 10 or 15. I started off my meditation practice using just uh, um, I can't think of the word, guided meditations.
Hmm.
that someone else, speaks all the words, and I don't really do that anymore. I use, can't remember the name of the app, but anyway, I generally just do my own now, but I
Hmm.
started off with guided meditations, and it started there, and that was an easy place for me to start. Sarah Blondin was someone who I used for my meditation a lot, and did a lot of crying actually at first when I first started meditating. My wife freaked out a little bit. It's like, is that supposed to be happening? It's like, I don't know, but it's helping. It's helping.
Mhm.
So I guess so. That's what I needed. Did a lot of that at first, and um, I haven't missed a day in more than 2 years now. So
Amazing.
that's yeah, that's it's building those small habits really is the key to being successful. And habit stacking is something that I'm really looking at right now and looking at
Mm.
just exploring a little further. It's a friend of mine and I are writing a book kind of geared towards construction foremen. We're just about done. We've got a couple chapters we're working on, and then I think we'll be done. But the very first chapter is also on my blog. It's called A Construction Suicide.
Mm.
But it's fiction, but it's a business fiction novel, business novel, I guess.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's that would be my wellness practice is my
Awesome.
meditation every day, and yeah,
Amazing.
I've
Amazing.
one other thing I've started doing when
Mhm.
people ask me how I am, I tell them I'm grateful instead
Mhm.
of just saying good or okay or yeah, pretty great, whatever. And that's really helped me in my gratitude practice and
Mhm.
something that I really kind of needed to do. And it makes people smile.
Mhm.
It really does change things when you start doing these things and creating these habits, and it can be a big change in your life if you're able to do those
Uh,
make those changes and create those habits.
yeah, I totally agree, and that's the first time I've heard that the I'm grateful response to how are you, and I want to hopefully remember and use that because I really like that. I think that's a great concept and idea, and it kind of forces that mentality, and it's super important. That's really cool.
Yeah, and uh, only about maybe 1 in 15 ask me what I'm grateful for. Most of them are happy
Yeah,
just to know that I'm grateful. So,
yeah, yeah. That's great.
but it's a good conversation starter too. So
Mm, awesome, awesome. Well, Brian, really appreciate you jumping on the show, taking the time to share your story. I'm excited to share it. Thanks so much, man.
thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, everyone. Bye now.